I stared at those documents, my heart pounding. This was bigger than I had imagined. This was not just about getting my money back or making them leave me alone. This was about real consequences. "What do you recommend?" I asked. Jessica leaned forward, her expression serious. "We send a demand letter. We lay out everything we have. The financial exploitation, the harassment, the defamation, the false CPS report. And we include the information about the fraud. We give them 48 hours to agree to our terms, or we take everything to the authorities and file a civil lawsuit." "What terms?" "They pay back the $37,000 they owe you. They sign a legally binding agreement to cease all contact with you and Leo. They post a public retraction and apology on social media, and they agree never to come within 500 feet of you or your son." It sounded almost too good to be true. "And if they refuse, then we go nuclear. We file the lawsuit. We send the fraud evidence to her employer and to the district attorney, and we get a restraining order." She paused. "But I need you to be prepared. If we do this, your parents will know everything about Chloe's illegal activities. It will tear your family apart." I thought about Leo, about the kind of family I wanted him to have. Not one built on obligation and exploitation, but one built on genuine love and respect. If that meant burning down the toxic structure that currently existed, then so be it. "Send the letter," I said. The demand letter went out on a Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, my phone was exploding with calls and texts from numbers I did not recognize. Family members, friends of my parents, people crawling out of the woodwork to tell me I was being unreasonable, that I was destroying the family, that I should be ashamed of myself. I ignored every single one. What I did not ignore was the email that came from Derek's personal account at 2 a.m. on Saturday. "Ellie, we need to talk, not through lawyers, just you and me. There are things you need to know about Chloe that change everything, please. I am trying to protect my kids." I forwarded it to Jessica. She called me within 10 minutes. "Do not respond directly, but I think we should take this meeting. I will be with you. Something is happening on their end, and we need to know what it is." We met Derek on Monday afternoon at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. He looked terrible, like he had not slept in days. His eyes were bloodshot, his usually neat hair disheveled. He did not even wait for us to sit down before he started talking. "I am filing for divorce," he said without preamble, "and I am going to testify on your behalf for everything you need." I sat down heavily. "What?" "When I saw that letter from your lawyer, I started digging. I found bank statements Chloe had been hiding, credit card bills I did not know about. She has been lying to me for years about everything. The debt, the spending, all of it." His voice cracked. "I have 3 kids to think about. If this fraud case goes public and she gets arrested, my children will be traumatized. But if I cooperate with you now, help you get what you are owed, maybe we can contain this before it destroys everything." Jessica pulled out her recorder. "I need you to repeat all of that on record, and I need you to provide documentation of everything you just mentioned." For the next 3 hours, Derek laid out everything. He provided bank statements showing money transfers I did not know about. He confirmed that every loan I had given Chloe was supposed to be temporary. He admitted that my parents had known about Chloe's fraud and had helped her cover it up. He even provided copies of text messages between Chloe and my mother discussing the CPS report before it was made. "She told your mother she was going to make the report?" Derek said, his voice hollow. "Your mother told her it was a good idea, that you needed to be taught a lesson about respect." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. My own mother had approved of using child services as a weapon against me. My own mother had been willing to traumatize her grandson to punish me. Jessica was making notes rapidly. "This is conspiracy. This is coordination to harass and potentially commit false reporting. Mr. Hayes, are you willing to testify to all of this in court if necessary?" "Yes, I just want primary custody of my kids and for this nightmare to be over." By Wednesday, the dominoes started falling. My parents received a second letter from Jessica, this one including excerpts from Derek's testimony and copies of the text messages. The letter gave them 24 hours to respond with an agreement to our terms or face both civil and potential criminal action. They caved in 18 hours. On Thursday afternoon, Jessica called me with the news. They agreed to everything. Full repayment of the $37,000 to be paid in monthly installments over 2 years. A legally binding non-contact agreement. And they have agreed to pay your legal fees. What about the public apology? They are refusing that. But honestly, Ellie, I think we should let that one go. You have won everything that matters. Making them humiliate themselves publicly might feel good in the moment, but it also keeps you tied to them emotionally. Better to take the money, take the protection, and walk away clean. She was right. I knew she was right. But there was a part of me that wanted them to hurt the way they had hurt me. Wanted them to feel the public shame and judgment I had endured. In the end, I agreed. Because Jessica was right about something else too. The best revenge was not making them suffer. It was building a life so good they became irrelevant. The final meeting took place in Jessica's conference room. My parents sat on one side of the table with their lawyer, a nervous-looking man who kept adjusting his glasses. I sat on the other side with Jessica. We did not speak directly to each other. The lawyers handled everything. Documents were signed. Payment schedules were established. The non-contact agreement was notarized. As we stood to leave, my father finally looked at me. His face was gray-aged 10 years in the past few weeks. "You have destroyed this family," he said quietly. I met his eyes without flinching. "No, Dad, you destroyed it 43 years ago when you decided one daughter was worth more than the other." I just finally stopped pretending it was okay. I walked out of that office with my head high. 2 weeks later, Derek's divorce was finalized with him getting primary custody. Chloe's employer, once they learned about the credit card fraud from an anonymous tip that may or may not have come from Derek, fired her immediately and filed their own charges. She ended up with a misdemeanor conviction, probation, and a requirement to pay full restitution to the company. The pandemic relief fraud was handled quietly. Derek agreed to repay the full amount plus penalties, and in exchange Chloe was not prosecuted federally, but she was now a convicted criminal with a record, and her career in finance was over. My parents, faced with their golden child's complete downfall and their own complicity in her crimes, became pariahs in their social circle. The truth had a way of coming out, especially when Derek had no reason to protect them anymore. People started asking questions about why I had needed a restraining order, about what had really happened at that anniversary dinner, about why their successful accountant daughter wanted nothing to do with them. I did not spread rumors or gossip. I did not need to. The truth was damning enough. 6 months after that dinner at the Primrose, I stood in the backyard of our new house. Not an apartment, a house. With a yard where Leo could play, and a second bedroom I was converting into a home office, so I could finally quit one of my jobs. The first payment from my parents had come through, and I had used it as a down payment on this fresh start. Leo was playing with his cousins, the children of Uncle Ben and Aunt Maggie, who had become regular fixtures in our lives. Real family. The kind who showed up not because they wanted something, but because they genuinely cared. Aunt Maggie was at the grill flipping burgers and laughing at something Uncle Ben said. The air smelled like charcoal and summer and possibility. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the area code. It was my mother's region. I opened it against my better judgment. The message was long, rambling, desperate. Accusations about how I had ruined their lives, destroyed Chloe's future, turned the family against them. How could I be so cruel? How could I live with myself? Did I feel proud of what I had done? They were my parents. I owed them respect. I owed them loyalty. I owed them forgiveness. I read the entire thing, and then I did something that would have been impossible for me a year ago. I deleted it without responding. Then I blocked the number. Then I slipped my phone back into my pocket and walked over to where Leo was drawing with chalk on the patio. He looked up at me with those bright eyes, smiling, happy, secure in the knowledge that he was loved and protected. "Mom, look what I drew. It is our new house." I knelt down to examine his artwork. He had drawn our house with exaggerated windows and a garden full of flowers we had not planted yet. In the picture, 2 stick figures stood in front, one big and one small, holding hands. "It is perfect," I told him, and I meant it. That night, after Leo was asleep and the house was quiet, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine and looked up at the stars. I thought about the version of myself who had walked into that restaurant 6 months ago, desperate for approval, willing to bankrupt herself emotionally and financially for people who would never value her. I did not miss her, but I was grateful to her because she had finally gotten angry enough to fight back. And in fighting back, she had discovered she was stronger than anyone, including herself, had ever believed. My phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number. Another message from my mother, who had clearly gotten a new phone to circumvent my block. "You cannot run from family forever. We will always be your parents. That will never change." I stared at those words for a long moment. Then I typed a response. The first and last communication I would ever send them. "You are right. You will always be the people who gave birth to me. But family is not about biology. It is about love, respect, and choosing to show up for each other, You taught me that lesson, just not the way you intended. I hope someday you understand what you lost. But I will not wait around for that day. I am done. I hit send. Then I blocked that number too. Then I went into my phone settings and enabled a feature that only allowed calls and texts from my approved contacts. The silence that followed was not empty. It was peaceful. I did not destroy my family. I freed myself from people who were poisoning my life and teaching my son that he deserved to be treated as less than. I chose my own well-being and my child's future over the comfort of people who had never chosen me. And I would make that choice again every single time. So here is what I want you to understand. If you are reading this and you see yourself in my story, if you are the one who gives and gives while others take and take, if you are the one who swallows insults and abuse because family is supposed to stick together, I need you to hear this. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You are not obligated to accept cruelty in the name of loyalty. And you are not destroying anything by walking away from toxicity. You are saving yourself. It will be hard. It will hurt. There will be days when you question everything and wonder if you made the right choice. But on the other side of that pain is a freedom you cannot imagine until you experience it. The freedom to build a life based on your own values. The freedom to surround yourself with people who actually care about you. The freedom to teach your children that they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. That freedom is worth fighting for. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic family members? Do you think I was too harsh, or did I do the right thing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe, because I have more stories about standing up, speaking out, and refusing to be anyone's doormat ever again. Your support means everything, and I cannot wait to hear your stories too. At the letter in my hands, my fingers trembling so badly the paper rustled like autumn leaves. The words seemed to blur and sharpen repeatedly as my brain tried to process what I was reading. Child Protective Services, investigation, anonymous report, emotional neglect. My son Leo's name appeared multiple times throughout the document, each mention feeling like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. Someone had reported me. Someone had tried to take away the one person in this world who mattered more to me than my own life. I knew exactly who had done this, and this time they had gone too far. But before I tell you how I made them pay for everything they had done, before I show you how I dismantled their perfect little world, piece by piece, I need you to understand something. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, if you have ever been the one who gives and gives while others take and take, if you have ever wondered when enough is finally enough, then this story is for you. Hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories like this, and drop a comment telling me if you have ever had to stand up to family who treated you like you were worthless. Because what I am about to tell you is how I went from being the family doormat to being the one who walked away with my head held high. Now let me take you back to where it all began. For 43 years, I had been the invisible daughter. Not invisible in the sense that my parents did not know I existed, but invisible in the ways that truly mattered. I was the daughter they called when they needed something fixed, when the bills needed organizing, when someone had to drive 3 hours to pick up my grandmother from the airport because Chloe was too busy. I was the one who showed up to every family dinner with a homemade dish and a smile even when I had worked a 12-hour shift and my feet were screaming. I was the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, who sent thoughtful cards, who asked about their lives and actually listened to the answers. And yet when the family photos were posted on Facebook, was often cropped out or standing awkwardly at the edge. When stories were told at gatherings about proud moments and accomplishments, my name rarely came up. When my parents bragged to their friends about their children, it was always Chloe's boutique, Chloe's beautiful home, Chloe's adorable kids. I had become a supporting character in my own family's narrative. I had perfected the art of swallowing hurt. Every dismissive comment, every forgotten achievement, every time my parents left a family event early without saying goodbye to me, but spent 20 minutes hugging Chloe, I would feel that familiar sting in my chest. Then I would smile, tell myself it did not matter, and move on. I had been doing this since I was 7 years old, and Chloe was born, and suddenly I was no longer the center of anyone's universe. My younger sister Chloe was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, even when she was doing everything wrong. She had failed out of 2 colleges, but it was because the professors did not understand her creative spirit. She had been fired from 3 jobs, but it was always someone else's fault, never hers. She had maxed out credit cards, bounced checks, and caused financial chaos wherever she went. But my parents would shake their heads fondly and say she just needed to find her path. Meanwhile, I had graduated summa cum laude with my accounting degree. I had worked at the same firm for 15 years, steadily climbing from junior accountant to senior financial analyst. I had never missed a mortgage payment, never overdrafted my account, never asked my parents for a single dollar after I turned 22. But none of that seemed to register as worthy of pride or praise. I was just Ellie. Dependable Ellie who would always be fine, who did not need encouragement or celebration. Ellie who would understand when her parents missed her college graduation because Chloe had a minor fender bender and needed emotional support. Ellie who would smile when her promotion at work was met with a distracted, "That's nice, honey," while Chloe's decision to start selling essential oils on Instagram was treated like she had just been appointed CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Ellie who did not need as much attention or love or basic human decency. Because she was strong, she was capable, she would always manage somehow. My parents, Richard and Carol, had always made their preference crystal clear, though they would have vehemently denied it if confronted. If you had asked them, they would have insisted they loved both daughters equally. They would have been offended by the suggestion of favoritism. But actions speak louder than words, and their actions had been screaming the same message my entire life. When Chloe wanted to start her boutique business at 26, a vanity project selling overpriced clothing to her friends, my parents helped her with a $15,000 down payment on the retail space. They called it an investment in her future. They threw her a launch party and invited everyone they knew. My mother posted about it constantly on Facebook, glowing with pride about her entrepreneurial daughter. When I needed help with Leo's medical bills after a severe asthma attack left us drowning in debt, when I was 29 and barely keeping my head above water working 16-hour days. Between my full-time job and freelance work, my father told me I should have been more responsible with my finances. He suggested I look into payment plans with the hospital. He reminded me that he and my mother were retired now and could not afford to help everyone with every little problem. The bill was $8,000, less than half of what they had given Chloe for her boutique, which folded within 18 months. When Chloe got married at 28, my parents threw her a wedding that cost more than I made in 2 years. 250 guests at a country club venue, a designer dress that required 3 fittings in another state, a honeymoon in Bali that lasted 2 weeks. My mother cried during the ceremony, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, and gave a speech about how proud she was to see her baby girl so happy. When I got married at 25, my parents gave me $500 in a card that said, "Congratulations on your wedding day," in generic gold script. My mother told me that since it was my second time meeting with the wedding planner, I probably did not need her there. My father said the small ceremony I was planning at a local garden sounded very practical and suited to my situation. The clear implication being that I, a pregnant bride, marrying a man they had met twice, did not deserve the fairy tale treatment. They did not cry at my wedding. They did not give speeches. They left the reception before the cake was cut because they had an early tea time the next morning. But I told myself it was fine. I told myself over and over like a mantra, like a prayer. Love was not about money or grand gestures. Love was quieter, subtler. Maybe my parents showed love differently. Maybe I was being too sensitive, too needy, too focused on fairness when life was not fair. Being the bigger person meant accepting the crumbs they offered and being grateful for them. It meant not keeping score. It meant understanding that parents were human and flawed and did their best. I repeated these things to myself so many times I almost believed them. I was such a fool. My marriage to Marcus lasted 7 years before it crumbled under the weight of his infidelity and my exhaustion. By then, Leo was 5 years old, a bright-eyed little boy with my dark hair and his father's dimples a child, who asked too many questions and laughed at everything and still believed the world was fundamentally good. I had ignored the signs for years. The late nights Marcus claimed were work dinners. The lipstick on his collar that was not my shade. The way he stopped looking at me when we talked, stopped asking about my day, stopped touching me except when he wanted something. I had been so busy trying to hold everything together, working 2 jobs to make up for his sporadic income as a freelance graphic designer, who seemed to do more networking than actual work, that I had not wanted to see what was right in front of me. When I finally found the text messages on his phone, when I saw the proof, I could no longer deny something inside me shattered. Not my heart that had been cracking for years, but my illusion that if I just tried hard enough, sacrificed enough, loved enough, I could make our family work. Marcus left us with half the debt we had accumulated during our marriage and none of the assets. He took the car that was paid off and left me with the one that still had 3 years of payments. He emptied our joint savings account, all $4,000 we had managed to save, and texted me that he deserved it for putting up with me for so long. He moved in with his girlfriend within a week, a 23-year-old dental hygienist named Brittany, who posted photos of them together on Instagram with captions about finding true love. Suddenly, I was a single mother working 2 jobs just to keep our small apartment and put food on the table. I would wake up at 5 in the morning, get Leo ready for kindergarten, drop him off work. 9 hours at the accounting firm. Pick him up from after school. Care, make dinner, help with homework, do freelance bookkeeping until midnight, and then collapse into bed for a few hours before doing it all again. I was exhausted. I was scared. I was drowning in bills and responsibility and the crushing weight of doing everything alone. Did my parents help? Did they offer even a fraction of the support they had lavished on Chloe over the years? Did they step in to lighten the load for their daughter who was struggling to survive? My mother sent me a text message. I still remember it word for word, even though I deleted it years ago. The words are burned into my memory like a brand. You made your bed, now lie in it. Maybe this will teach you to work harder on your relationships. A man does not stray unless something is missing at home. I read that message while sitting in my car in the grocery store parking lot, Leo strapped in his car seat behind me, humming to himself. I read it 3 times each time, hoping I had misunderstood that the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something that resembled parental love or concern. They did not. My mother was blaming me for my husband's infidelity. She was suggesting that if I had been a better wife, more attentive, something, he would not have cheated. She was telling me that my pain, my care, my complete life upheaval was a lesson I deserved to learn. I called her. She did not answer. I called my father. He picked up on the 4th ring, sounded annoyed that I was interrupting his golf game, and told me that my mother was right. I needed to take responsibility for my choices. I had rushed into marriage. I had gotten pregnant to trap Marcus. I had always been too focused on work and not enough on my family. Every word was a knife. Every accusation was another piece of my heart breaking off and turning to stone. I cried for 3 days. I cried while I made Leo breakfast. I cried in the shower. I cried at my desk at work, hiding in the bathroom stall during my lunch break. I cried myself to sleep, my face buried in my pillow so Leo would not hear. Then on the 4th day, I dried my tears. I looked at myself in the mirror, at my red swollen eyes and blotchy skin, and I made a decision. I could not change my parents. I could not make them love me the way I needed to be loved. I could not force them to see my worth. But I could survive. I could provide for my son. I could build a life that did not require their approval or their help. So I straightened my spine, lifted my chin, and got back to work. Over the next few years, I built a life for Leo and myself. It was not glamorous. It was not the life I had imagined when I was young and still believed in fairy tales. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that was safe, but not fancy, where the buildings were old but maintained, where kids played in the parking lot on summer evenings, and neighbors actually knew each other's names. I worked as a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm, a job that paid decently and had good benefits, but would never make me rich. I did freelance bookkeeping on the weekends for small businesses working from home, while Leo played nearby, adding a few $100 extra to our budget each month. Every dollar was accounted for. I had spreadsheets tracking our expenses, our savings goals, our debt repayment schedule. Every expense was carefully planned. We clipped coupons, we shopped sales, we made do and mended and stretched everything as far as it would go. But we were happy, genuinely, truly happy in a way I had never been in my marriage or in my childhood home. Leo had everything he needed, and most of what he wanted within reason. We had movie nights on Fridays with homemade popcorn and candy I bought on sale. We went to the free museums on weekends, packing lunches and making a whole day of it. We read library books before bed. We had inside jokes and traditions, and a home that felt peaceful instead of tense. We were building something real, something solid, something that was ours and could not be taken away or diminished by anyone else's judgment. Meanwhile, Chloe's life was a carefully curated Instagram fantasy. She married Derek when she was 30, a pharmaceutical sales rep, who made good money but spent it even faster on the lifestyle they both believed they deserved. They had 3 children in 4 years. Madison, Jake, and Sophie, beautiful photogenic children who were dressed in designer clothes and enrolled in every expensive activity available. They lived in a 4-bedroom house in a trendy neighborhood with good schools, a house they could barely afford, even with Derek's 6-figure income. The mortgage was crushing, but it looked impressive in photos. It said success. It said we made it. They maintained a lifestyle that required constant infusions of cash from my parents, and increasingly from me. New cars every 3 years, vacations to exotic locations several times a year, furniture that cost more than my monthly rent, clothes from boutiques where a single shirt could cost $300. It started small, the requests for money. $100 here because Chloe miscalculated her grocery budget after buying organic everything and specialty items. $200 there because little Madison needed new shoes, and Chloe had already maxed out her credit cards buying decorations for a birthday party that had a professional event planner. Then it escalated the way these things always do. $500 for an unexpected car repair that should have been covered by their emergency fund if they had one. $1,000 because Derek's commission check was delayed and they needed to cover bills. $2,000 because they were going to lose the house if they could not make the mortgage payment. Every single time the money was described as a loan. Every single time Chloe would call me crying or texting in a panic, promising this was the last time, swearing she would pay me back as soon as Derek's next check came through, or as soon as tax refunds arrived, or as soon as her boutique started making a profit again. And every single time the debt was never mentioned again after I transferred the funds. It vanished like smoke. If I brought it up, Chloe would look confused, hurt that I was keeping track of such things between sisters. Did I not understand that family helped family? Was I really going to nickel and dime her when she was struggling? I kept a record anyway. I am an accountant after all. I could not help myself. I created a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and the reasons Chloe had given for needing the money. I watched the numbers grow month by month, year by year. Over the course of 8 years, I gave Chloe $37,000. Not loaned, gave. Because none of it ever came back. Not a single payment. Not even a symbolic $20 to show good faith. Nothing. $37,000 that I had earned working extra hours and sacrificing things for Leo and myself. $37,000 that could have been Leo's college fund or a down payment on a house or security for our future. Instead, it funded Chloe's Instagram lifestyle. It paid for vacations I could never afford. It kept her in the house that impressed her friends while Leo and I lived in our modest apartment. The worst part was not even the money, though, that hurt deeply enough. It was the fact that my parents knew. They knew exactly what was happening. They saw Chloe constantly asking me for money. They heard her on the phone making her tearful requests. They knew she never paid me back. And they said nothing. Or worse, they would make little comments about how wonderful it was that Chloe and I were so close, how family should always help family. How blessed they were to have daughters who loved each other so much and looked out for one another. My father once patted me on the shoulder and said, "Your sister is lucky to have you, Ellie. Not everyone would be so generous." As if my generosity was voluntary. As if I was not being emotionally manipulated and financially exploited. My mother would smile and say, "You girls are so good to each other. That is what family is all about." As if the relationship was reciprocal. As if Chloe had ever once helped me with anything. I wanted to scream every time. I wanted to slam my hands on the table and shout that this was not love, this was not family. This was exploitation wrapped in guilt and obligation. I wanted to demand why they expected me to fund Chloe's lifestyle when they knew I was struggling too. I wanted to ask why my hard-earned money was less valuable than Chloe's comfort. But I did not, because that is what Ellie does. Ellie stays quiet. Ellie swallows her anger and her hurt and her sense of injustice. Ellie keeps the peace because making waves is worse than drowning slowly. Ellie does not make a scene because good daughters, invisible daughters, grateful daughters do not cause problems. That is what I told myself anyway, right up until the moment I could not tell myself that anymore. But then came my parents' 45th wedding anniversary. I spent weeks planning the perfect celebration. I researched restaurants, compared menus, read hundreds of reviews. I finally settled on the Primrose, the most expensive steakhouse in the city, the kind of place where a single meal could easily cost $300 per person. I booked a private dining room, put down a $500 deposit, and sent out elegant invitations to the immediate family. My parents, Chloe, and her family, Leo, and myself. I even bought them a gift, a custom-made photo album, filled with pictures from throughout their marriage, professionally bound in leather, with a dedication I had written myself. It cost me 2 weeks of freelance earnings, but I told myself it would be worth it. This would be the moment my parents finally saw me, really saw me, and recognized all the years of quiet devotion I had offered them. I should have known better. Leo and I arrived at the Primrose at exactly 6:55 on Saturday evening. The reservation was for 7, and I had always been taught that being on time meant being 5 minutes early. We walked through the elegant lobby with its gleaming marble floors and crystal chandeliers, past the main dining room, where well-dressed patrons murmured over glasses of wine that probably cost more than my monthly electricity bill. The hostess, a young woman with a sleek black dress and a professional smile, checked her list and guided us toward the private room I had reserved. As we approached, I could already hear voices inside. My stomach tightened with a familiar anxiety. They were already here, all of them. I had arrived early, but apparently not early enough. I pushed open the door with Leo's small hand clasped firmly in mine, a smile already forming on my face, ready to greet my family with warmth and excitement. The scene before me made that smile freeze and crack like thin ice. The table was enormous, set for 12 with pristine white linens and enough silverware to confuse royalty. And spread across that table was a feast that I had definitely not ordered. Platters of jumbo shrimp cocktail, each shrimp the size of my fist. Towers of Alaskan king crab legs, their shells glistening with butter. Plates of seared foie gras and truffle risotto. 2 bottles of wine already half empty that I recognized from the menu as costing $400 each. My parents sat at the head of the table, my father cutting into what looked like a porterhouse steak, my mother delicately picking at a lobster tail. Chloe sat to their right, her husband Derek beside her, and their 3 children were demolishing their own plates with the single-minded focus of young savages. Madison, the oldest at 9, had butter smeared across her chin as she cracked another crab leg. The twins Jake and Sophie were fighting over who got the last shrimp from a now empty platter. Not a single person looked up when we entered. I stood there, still holding Leo's hand, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. This was not what I had planned. This was not what I had budgeted for. This had to be thousands of dollars of food, and judging by the empty plates and the greasy napkins scattered across the table, they had already eaten most of it. Finally, Chloe glanced up. Her eyes met mine for a brief second, and I saw something flicker there. Not shame, not embarrassment, something closer to satisfaction. She set down her fork with deliberate slowness and dabbed at her lips with her napkin, leaving a smear of lipstick on the white cloth. Then she smiled, and it was the kind of smile a cat gives a mouse right before the pounce. "Oh," she said, her voice dripping with mock surprise. "You are here. I honestly did not think you would make it. I mean, a place like this." She gestured around the room with one perfectly manicured hand. "I know money is tight for you these days." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Leo's hand tightened in mine. He was 10 years old, smart enough to understand tone, even when he did not understand all the words. He pressed closer to my side, and I felt him trying to make himself smaller. I found my voice, though it came out quieter than I intended. "I made the reservation. I am the one who booked this room." "Oh, I know." Chloe's smile widened. She picked up her wine glass and took a long sip, her eyes never leaving mine. "But when we got here and told them we were the Hayes party, they sat us right down, and since you had not arrived yet, we figured we should go ahead and order. You know how the kids get when they are hungry." My father finally looked up from his steak. His expression was not apologetic. It was not even particularly interested. "You should have arrived on time, Eleanor. When you book a reservation at a nice place like this, people expect you to be here when the meal starts." I glanced at the elegant clock on the wall. It was 6:57, 3 minutes before our reservation time. "Dad, I am early. The reservation is for 7. He waved his hand dismissively, the gesture of a king brushing away an annoying insect. "We have been here since 6:30. You should have coordinated better." My mother did not even look up from her phone. She was scrolling through Facebook, her thumbs moving rapidly across the screen, completely absorbed in whatever was more interesting than her daughter and grandson standing awkwardly by the door. I tried again, my voice a little stronger now. "I specifically planned for 7 o'clock because I thought that would give everyone time to get here from work. And I did not order any of this food. We were supposed to look at the menu together and decide as a family." Chloe set down her wine glass with a soft clink. "Well, we decided. And honestly, Ellie, you have never been great at making decisions anyway. Remember when you chose Marcus? How did that work out for you?" The jab hit its mark. I felt my cheeks flush hot, that familiar burn of shame and anger mixing together in my chest. Derek chuckled, actually chuckled like his wife had just told the funniest joke he had heard all day. I looked at Leo, my beautiful, sensitive, too smart for his own good son. He was staring at the floor, his shoulders hunched, trying to disappear. And in that moment, I saw what this was doing to him. Not just this dinner, but all of it. Every slight, every dismissal, every casual cruelty that I had accepted as normal. I had been teaching him that this was okay, that this was what family looked like, that he should expect to be treated as less than. Something inside me that had been bending for 43 years finally snapped. A waiter appeared at my elbow, a young man in a crisp white shirt with a pad of paper in his hand. "Ma'am, would you like to order something for yourself and the young man?" I turned to him, and when I spoke, my voice was different, clearer, harder, louder. "Actually, I need to speak with your manager, please." The waiter looked uncertain. "Is there a problem with the service?" "There is a problem with the bill?" I said, my eyes fixed on Chloe's face. I watched her expression shift from smug satisfaction to confusion. "You see, I am the one who made this reservation. I put down a $500 deposit on this room. My name is Eleanor Chen, and I specifically reserved this space for a small, intimate family dinner." The waiter checked his tablet. "Yes, ma'am, I have you right here. Party of 7. "Exactly, party of 7. And what I see on this table right now is several $1,000s worth of food and wine that I did not authorize and do not intend to pay for." The room went silent. Even the children stopped chewing and looked up. My father's face turned an interesting shade of red. "Eleanor, what are you doing?" "I am setting things right, Dad." I gestured to the decimated feast spread before them. "This is not what I planned. This is not what I budgeted for. I planned a nice dinner where we would order reasonable meals and celebrate your anniversary as a family. What I see here is approximately $4,000 worth of premium seafood and steaks that my sister and her family have already consumed." Chloe stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "You are making a scene. This is Mom and Dad's anniversary and you are ruining it." "No," I said, and my voice was steady now, stronger than I had ever heard it. "You ruined it when you decided to treat me like a credit card instead of a sister. You ruined it when you ordered enough food to feed an army without considering who would pay for it. You ruined it when you assumed I would just smile and swallow another massive expense without saying a word." My mother finally looked up from her phone, her face pale. "Eleanor, lower your voice. People can hear you." "Good," I said. "Let them hear." The manager appeared, then a middle-aged man in an expensive suit with concern etched across his features. "I understand there is an issue with the bill." I handed him the copy of my reservation confirmation that I had printed out and brought with me. I always kept records. "I made a reservation for 7 people for a 7 o'clock dinner. I was very specific about wanting to see menus and order as a group. What happened instead is that my family arrived early and ordered several $1,000s worth of food without my knowledge or consent." The manager looked at the table, at the empty platters and the half-drunk bottles of expensive wine, then back at me. "I see. This is certainly irregular. What I would like," I continued, my voice calm and professional, "is for you to separate the bill. Everything that has already been ordered and consumed, that will be on them." I pointed at my parents and Chloe's family. "My son and I will order our own meals, which will be on the deposit I already paid. Is that understood?" Chloe's mouth fell open. "You cannot be serious?" "I am completely serious." I turned to Leo and knelt down so we were eye to eye. His face was flushed, and I could see he was fighting back tears, but there was something else in his expression too. Something that looked like pride. "Sweetheart, what would you like for dinner? You can have anything on the menu. Would you like the Alaskan king crab, like your cousins had, or maybe the Kobe beef steak?" His voice was small but clear. "Can I have the lobster like Grandma?" "You absolutely can." I stood up and looked at the manager. "We will have 2 lobster dinners and 2 orders of your seasonal vegetables. And please bring the check for everything else to the table now." The manager nodded slowly. "Of course, ma'am, I will have that printed immediately." My father pushed back from the table. "This is absurd. We are family." "You are absolutely right, Dad. We are family. And family should not treat each other the way you have all treated me for the past 43 years. Family should not assume one person exists solely to fund everyone else's lifestyle. Family should not look at a single mother working herself to exhaustion and think, how can we squeeze more money out of her?" I picked up my purse and slung it over my shoulder. "So here is how this is going to work. You all are going to pay for the feast you just enjoyed. The manager is going to bring Leo and me 2 beautiful lobster dinners in about 30 minutes, and you all are going to leave. Now. Chloe looked at our parents, clearly expecting them to take control of the situation to put me back in my place. But for once, they seemed at a loss for words. The manager returned with a leather-bound bill folder. He set it carefully on the table in front of my father. Your total comes to $4,376, sir, and that is with the discount for the private room which was already covered by Ms. Chen's deposit. I watched my father's face go from red to white as he opened the folder. He stared at the number at the bottom of the receipt, then looked up at me with an expression I had never seen before. It might have been respect, or it might have been fear. We are not paying this, Chloe said, but her voice had lost its confidence. This is extortion. No, I said softly. This is accountability. You ordered it, you ate it, you pay for it. That is how restaurants work. That is how life works. Derek was already pulling out his wallet, his face carefully neutral. He knew how this looked. He knew how this would play out if they made a bigger scene. And unlike the rest of my family, he had a job reputation to protect. We'll cover it, he muttered, not meeting anyone's eyes. Chloe whirled on him. We will do no such thing. Honey, we ate 4 lobsters. His voice was tight. We drank $800 worth of wine. We pay. My mother finally spoke, her voice small and hurt. You would really do this to us on our anniversary? I looked at her, this woman who had given birth to me but had never truly seen me, and I felt something shift inside my chest. It was not anger anymore. It was not even hurt. It was clarity. Mom, I spent 3 weeks planning a beautiful celebration for you. I saved money I could not afford to save. I bought you a gift that took hours to put together. I wanted tonight to be special. And what did I walk into? My family gorging themselves on food they expected me to pay for, while making sure my son knew he was not welcome. So yes, I would really do this to you, because you did it to me first. I took Leo's hand. The manager has our order. We are going to wait in the lobby for our meals to be ready, and then we will eat in peace. I hope you all have a good evening. I walked out of that room with my head high and my son's hand in mine. Behind me I heard raised voices. Accusations, the sound of Derek trying to calm everyone down. But I did not look back. In the lobby, Leo looked up at me with wide eyes. Mom, are you okay? I knelt down and pulled him into a hug, feeling his small arms wrap around my neck. Yeah, baby, I am more than okay. I am done. Done with what? Done being invisible. We ate our lobster dinners in the lobby lounge while other patrons gave us curious looks. The lobster was delicious, buttery, and perfectly cooked. Leo got drawn butter all over his fingers and laughed when I showed him how to crack the claws. It was the best meal I had eaten in years. I did not know then that this was just the beginning. I did not know that by standing up for myself, I had declared war on people who believed they owned me. I did not know that they would strike back with a viciousness I had not imagined they were capable of. But I also did not know that I was stronger than I had ever believed, and I was about to prove it. That night, after I tucked Leo into bed and kissed his forehead, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and my phone. I should have been exhausted. Instead, I felt wired, energized, like I had been running on empty for years and had finally found fuel. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. I almost did not open it, but curiosity won. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. You're going to regret embarrassing us like that. Just wait. I stared at those words for a long moment. Then I screenshot the message, saved it to a folder I titled Evidence, and blocked her number. If she wanted a war, I would give her one. But this time, I would not be fighting with one hand tied behind my back. I opened my laptop and started a new document. At the top, I typed financial records Chloe Hayes. Then I began pulling up every bank transfer, every Venmo payment, every receipt and email confirmation from the past 8 years. Every single dollar I had given her with dates and descriptions. It took me 3 hours. By the time I finished, I had a 23-page document detailing $37,000 in loans that were never repaid. And that was just Chloe. I had not even started on the times I had covered expenses for my parents, the gifts I had bought that were never acknowledged, the help I had provided that was never reciprocated. But I would. I had all the time in the world now. The next morning was Sunday. I slept in for the first time in months, and when I woke up, I made Leo and myself pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, his favorite. We were finishing breakfast when my phone started buzzing incessantly, not calls, notifications, dozens of them, all from social media. I opened Facebook and felt my stomach drop. Chloe had posted a photo from the anniversary dinner. It must have been taken before Leo and I arrived because we were not in it. The whole family was posed around the table, my parents in the center, everyone smiling. The caption read, "Family is everything." So grateful for these precious moments with the people who matter most. Though it breaks my heart when jealousy and bitterness try to destroy something sacred. Praying for peace and healing for those who have lost their way. The comments were already piling up. Friends of Chloe's relatives I barely knew, everyone expressing sympathy and support. So sorry you are going through this. Some people just cannot be happy for others. Family drama is the worst. Stay strong. Not a single person knew what had actually happened. Not a single person had asked for my side of the story. They just saw Chloe's carefully curated narrative and accepted it as truth. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest, that urge to defend myself, to explain, to make them understand. But then I remembered the way Leo had looked at me last night after I stood up for us. The pride in his eyes. The way he had hugged me extra tight before bed. I closed Facebook without commenting, without responding, without trying to set the record straight. Because I had learned something important last night. I did not need their approval. I did not need their understanding. I only needed to protect my son and preserve my own sanity. The phone calls started around noon. First my mother, then my father, then my mother again. I let them all go to voicemail. I would listen to them later when I was emotionally prepared, and I would save them. Evidence. But then my Aunt Maggie called and I answered. Aunt Maggie was my father's younger sister, and she had always been different from the rest of the family. She was blunt, honest, and had a low tolerance for nonsense. "Ellie," she said without preamble, "I just got off the phone with your mother and I need to know what really happened last night." So I told her. Everything. The planning, the expense walking in to find they had already ordered thousands of dollars of food, the way Chloe had made sure Leo knew he was not welcome. The decision I had made to finally stand up for myself. There was a long silence when I finished. Then Maggie said, "Good for you." I almost dropped the phone. "What?" I said, "Good for you. It is about damn time someone put your parents and that spoiled brat sister of yours in their place. Do you know how many times over the years I have watched them treat you like garbage? How many family gatherings I have had to sit through while they praised Chloe for doing the bare minimum and ignored every sacrifice you made?" My throat got tight. "You saw that?" "Everyone saw it, honey. The difference is most people do not have the guts to say anything. Family loyalty and all that garbage. But I am telling you right now, what you did last night was not wrong. It was long overdue." "Chloe posted on Facebook," I said quietly. "She is making me look like the villain." Of course she did. That girl has never taken responsibility for anything in her life. But you know what? Let her post. Let her play victim. The people who matter know the truth. And the people who do not know the truth were never really on your side anyway. After I hung up with Aunt Maggie, I felt a little lighter. At least one person in this family understood. But that lightness did not last long. On Monday morning, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Ms. Chen, this is Principal Morrison from Riverside Elementary. I need you to come to the school right away. There has been an incident involving Leo." My heart stopped. "Is he hurt? What happened?" "He is fine physically, but we need to discuss a concerning situation. Can you be here within the hour?" I was there in 20 minutes, my mind racing through terrible possibilities. Leo had been getting along fine at school. His grades were good. He had friends. What incident could possibly require an emergency parent meeting? Principal Morrison was a thin woman in her 50s, with kind eyes that were now filled with what looked like discomfort. She gestured for me to sit in the chair across from her desk. "Ms. Chen, I want you to know that we take all reports very seriously. But we also understand that sometimes these situations are more complex than they initially appear." "What reports? What is this about?" She opened a folder on her desk. "We received an anonymous call to our office this morning, expressing concerns about Leo's well-being. The caller suggested that Leo was being emotionally neglected at home, that you were too focused on work to properly care for him, and that he often appeared withdrawn and anxious at school." The room tilted. "What? That is insane. Leo is happy. He is healthy. He has everything he needs." "I understand this must be shocking to hear. The reason I called you in is because when we receive a report like this, we are legally mandated to contact Child Protective Services. Someone from CPS will need to do a home visit and interview both you and Leo." I could not breathe. Someone had called in a report about me. Someone had tried to weaponize the system meant to protect children to hurt me, and I knew exactly who had done it. "When did this call come in?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. This morning around 8:30, less than 48 hours after the restaurant incident. This was retaliation. This was punishment for daring to stand up for myself. Principal Morrison, I need you to know something. My son is well cared for. He has never been neglected emotionally or otherwise. And I believe this anonymous report was made maliciously by a family member who is angry with me for setting boundaries. Her expression softened slightly. I have known Leo for 2 years now, and I have never had any concerns about his home life. But I cannot ignore a formal report. CPS will conduct their investigation, and if they find no cause for concern, this will be closed. I am very sorry you are dealing with this. 2 days later, 2 social workers showed up at my apartment. They were professional but thorough. They inspected every room, checked the food in the fridge and pantry, looked at Leo's bedroom with its neat stacks of books and his drawings covering one wall. They interviewed me for over an hour, asking questions about my work schedule, Leo's routine, his medical care, his social life. Then they interviewed Leo, alone. And I had to sit in my living room listening to my 10-year-old son answer questions about whether his mother took good care of him, whether he felt safe, whether he had enough to eat. When they finally finished, the lead social worker, a woman named Janet with exhausted eyes, closed her notebook and looked at me. Ms. Chen, I have been doing this job for 15 years, and I can recognize a malicious report when I see one. Your son is healthy, happy, well-adjusted, and clearly adores you. Your home is clean and safe. You have stable employment and adequate resources. There is absolutely no evidence of neglect of any kind. The relief made my knees weak. So this is over. The case will be closed with no findings. However, a report was made, so there will be a record in the system. I am very sorry this happened to you. Unfortunately, sometimes people use CPS as a weapon in personal disputes. After they left, I held Leo while he cried. He was scared, confused about why strangers had come to our home, and asked him all those questions. I tried to explain it in a way he could understand, but how do you tell a child that members of his own family had tried to take him away from his mother? That night, after Leo finally fell asleep, I poured myself a large glass of wine and sat at my kitchen table with my phone in my hand. I was shaking with anger, with fear, with a protective rage I had never experienced before. They had gone after my child. They had tried to use the system to terrorize me and potentially take away my son. And they had done it anonymously, like cowards, making it impossible for me to prove who was responsible, even though we both knew. I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I had saved months ago but had never called. Jessica Thorne, attorney at law. I had met her at a professional networking event, and we had exchanged cards. She specialized in family law and civil litigation. I did not care that it was 9 o'clock at night. I sent her an email laying out everything that had happened. The years of financial exploitation, the restaurant incident, the social media smear campaign, the CPS report. I attached my financial documentation showing every dollar I had given Chloe. She responded within 20 minutes. Call my office first thing tomorrow morning. What they did is harassment, defamation, and potentially criminal. We need to talk. The next morning, I sat in Jessica Thorne's office, a sleek, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Jessica was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and sharper dressed, and she listened to my entire story without interrupting once. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and tapped her pen against her legal pad. You have an excellent case for harassment and for recovery of the money your sister owes you. The CPS report is trickier since it was anonymous, but we can work with that. What I need to know is, what do you want the outcome to be? I had thought about this question all night. I want them to stop. I want them to leave me and my son alone. And I want my money back. That is reasonable, but I need you to understand something. Once we start this process, your family relationships will likely be permanently damaged. There is no going back from this. I thought about Leo's face when the CPS workers interviewed him. I thought about decades of being invisible, being used, being dismissed. I thought about the kind of man I wanted my son to grow up to be, and the lessons I was teaching him by allowing this treatment to continue. Those relationships are already damaged, I said quietly. They were never real to begin with. Jessica nodded slowly. Then let's get to work. Over the next 2 weeks, Jessica and her team assembled a case that was devastating in its thoroughness. We had the financial records showing $37,000 in unrepaid loans. We had the screenshots of Chloe's social media posts that were clearly defamatory. We had the CPS report and the closure letter showing it was unfounded. We had text messages from my parents calling me ungrateful, accusing me of ruining their anniversary, demanding that I apologize. But the real bombshell came from something I had not even known to look for. Jessica had a private investigator do a background check on Chloe and Derek. What we found made my blood run cold. Chloe had been using her company credit card for personal expenses for over 2 years. Dinners out, shopping trips, even a weekend vacation to Las Vegas that she had claimed was a business conference. The total was over $18,000 in fraudulent charges. Additionally, Derek and Chloe had applied for and received pandemic relief loans for a small business that did not actually exist. They had committed loan fraud to the tune of $25,000. This is not just family drama anymore, Jessica said, spreading the documents across her conference table. This is criminal fraud. If this information gets to the right authorities, your sister could face serious legal consequences. I stare.